John,
Hey Dylan, good to see you, man.
yo, yo.
You've been
Before we dive
recording?
into it, happy birthday, man.
Thanks so much.
I didn't know you're in your, you look a lot younger.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, it's like, low res cameras hide the wrinkles, etc.
I think it's the energy, dude. Honestly, like when it comes down to it, man, you got such a youthful energy. I think, man, I would have never guessed. I saw your Facebook post. I'm like, wait, what? Is that a typo?
Yeah, I think the key thing is like, I think at some point what happens to a lot of people is that they feel like they failed or something and that they give up on trying. And then they get
Yeah.
old really fast in their personality.
All
Whereas
right.
like I've screwed up a ton of times, but I'm always just like, keep reaching for the rainbow. It's better days are
Yeah,
coming.
that's it, man. That's it.
Um,
All
I,
right, let's dive in here. I got
yes,
no idea how this goes, but let's rock it.
it's just a kind of a conversation and like, so first off I just want to like say a little bit about who you are and then you can tell me about yourself. But like,
Cool.
Dylan, I know you maybe about 18 months. You're one of the people I think is like most inspirational that I've met in recent years, just because you've like, not only been successful, which I know a lot of people have been successful, but you've actually chosen to take on so much responsibility in your life at such a young age. I think is a really impressive character trait. Like, you have like so many employees that work for you, people who rely on you, and you love it. You're always like in a good mood and like excited, and like I can only imagine the amount of bullshit you have to deal with on a daily basis. I'm just like, but you love it. You just like, give me a bigger spoon all the time.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
So
Yeah.
tell us about a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Yeah, let's do it. And then everything you just said will probably make sense for for everyone. So, um, yeah, man, I run a sales agency. I've been saying this for 5 years, but we've kind of evolved, you know. I run a sales agency. We close deals for some of the biggest online coaches in the world. Probably the most well known being Ty Lopez. We work with a lot of biz op coaches, people who make money online products, and what we do is we build sales teams for them, right? So we have guys. I'm gonna just flip the camera right here. We got guys out there on the sales floor. Everyone's taking a little break right now, smoke break, but we got guys just dialing leads all day long, closing deals for these online coaches. We've been doing that for about 5 years. Recently, we've shifted a little bit to selling our own course as well as publishing a couple. But yeah, I got a big room of a lot of salespeople and a lot of salespeople that work with us remotely, and we do phone sales for some big online coaches.
And yeah, this is one thing I think that makes you very distinctive to other people who are in the same space as you, where a lot of these guys have got like companies that are fully distributed. It's really a bunch of laptops and people working from home. Whereas you
Yeah.
actually went out and said, you did the thing where you went out and signed a lease on a big building and said, hey, people, come on in, and you packed your team into onto one big floor. Why did you decide to go that way instead of doing it the all fully online way?
It's a good question. I mean, for me to actually show you and really explain why I did it, I got to kind of give you a little bit of a backstory. Okay, when I was in high school, my last year of high school and my first year of university before I dropped out, I, I was working at a Starbucks. I was literally working at a Starbucks, making calls by myself. And I started doing pretty well. I worked with an e-commerce coach. We were selling a z-com coaching program for $5,000. I was doing really well as a young as a young hustler. Like I was making 20K a month. Um, Pretty easily, man. Like I wasn't working crazy hours yet. It turned into that, but I wasn't working crazy hours. I was making great money. I was working at a Starbucks alone. And I did it for a few months. And I got to a point where I kind of realized that, like, look, in order for me to really take it to the next level, I gotta hire people. So I did. I hired a couple of friends. I transcribed my call recordings, gave them a script, and they did okay. They didn't close as much as I did, but they did pretty well. And it got to a point where we were six guys working at a Starbucks at a long table, like yelling on phones Um, and, obviously Starbucks employees weren't too happy. So I realized I couldn't really keep growing in that sense. So I started hiring remote. Okay. I hired people remote. Primarily in the US. I had a couple people in UK as well, but I noticed that consistently every single one of the people that was with me at Starbucks at the time was performing better. And that's not because I hired shitty closers, right? Remote. Um, but the truth is that like the energy of us being all in the same room, having me to really guide them. They get an objection, and I'll like literally grab the phone and close it out for them. Like that all plays a big role. And I think that being in one room is what I kind of came down to was making the biggest difference for the guys that were beside me. So we just got to a point where like money was pretty consistent. I had some money saved up from when I was doing calls myself. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm young. Like, I don't know. Shit hits the fan, whatever. I can't pay the lease, whatever. It's like, I kind of went like, fuck it, let's do it, right? Um, so I found this building, funny enough, it was on Kijiji, because it wasn't like formally rented out on MLS or whatever. I found it, I messaged the landlord, I'm like, hey, I got no credit history. I'm 18. I have two young guys. He's like, come and see me. So I come, and it's this beautiful building, with marble walls and all this stuff. And like, he's giving me this look, like, what the fuck are you doing here? Obviously, I think the beard deceived him a little bit. He thought I'm older than 18. But no credit history, no nothing. But I'm a sales guy, so I closed him on letting me move in here, and I did with a few of my guys, and it was pretty bumpy. It was pretty rough at first. My guy, like my landlord has a pretty big consulting agency, and he uses the building himself. Certain rooms and downstairs. So like his guys are like all suited up, dressed up. My guys are in like sweats and like, super casual, swearing on the phone. So we had a little bit of conflict at first. And then we kind of like decide, okay, this is my space, that's your space. And we kind of settle things that way. And then dude, when I stopped hiring people remote and only hired people in office, that was like I mean, I've had multiple breakthroughs in the business, but that was like probably the first big breakthrough that I had. So being in the same room is just huge. Energy is everything.
Amazing. Yeah. And it's a realization I'm having for myself this year, where like when I got into this marketing space, I was like kind of burned out from my previous gig in construction, and I wanted to just take a break from being around a bunch of people all day long. And that was good
Yeah,
for a while, but I've now come to the point where like I want the energy of being around people as well. It can be very isolating. Just I've got this nice little office set up at home, but it
yeah.
doesn't have any other people, and it does energize you being around like-minded folks.
It's funny, everyone talks about like this laptop lifestyle and all this stuff, and then you do the laptop lifestyle for a bit, and you're like, well, fuck, now I don't have other people around me. I don't have anyone to bounce ideas off of, which is like the whole concept of the grass is greener on the other side. I think it
Mm-hmm.
always is to an extent, and then look, everything has its advantages. Obviously, not relying on people and stuff like that is advantageous to many people, depending on where they're at in life. But dude, man, like I'll tell you this, some of my best friends are people that work for me, and I could say the same thing for my guys. Like, dude, they've made such great friendships. I think it really comes down to like having that. I don't like the term work-life balance, especially in sales, because it doesn't really exist. But I think that it's important to make time for certain things, make time to work out, make time to spend with friends, and all these other things, right? Super important.
Awesome. And I mean, you're already, running a business, but you started young. Like, when was the first time you actually first said, okay, I gotta go sell something, I gotta go make a deal or get some money somehow? Where did it start?
This was probably around grade 9 or 10.
What age would you be in?
This was, I would have been 15, 16, somewhere around
Okay.
there. Um, look, I worked one job ever in my life. It was in telemarketing, funny enough.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Not because I wanted to, but because my sister kind of dragged me into it. One of her friends dragged her into it, and then she dragged me into it. I lasted, I think, three days or 4 days, something like that. And I just like, man, like making calls for minimum wage, and it was like an extra $10 for every appointment I set. It was like, it was ridiculous. So right off the bat, I knew that I wanted to do my own thing. And look, I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy the rush of closing a deal, no matter how big it is. But I knew I had to do something on my own. I remember walking, going on a walk actually in my neighborhood where I grew up, and there was a sign on one of these street lamps, and it said window cleaning, door-to-door sales job, make like 150 to $200 a day. And I'm like, well, that's a lot of money for someone at that age, 15, 16. And I'm like, well, it's even more money if I'm not working for that person, I'm doing it myself. So I kind of just like I reached out to this guy who had this listing up. And I'm like, look, I'll do all the sales, you do all the cleaning, we'll partner up 50-50, let's rock. And we did it. I started doing door to door. And dude, I started closing more deals. I keep calling it more deals, but it's only window cleaning jobs.
It's a deal. A deal is a deal.
I started closing more of these window cleaning jobs than this guy alone could handle. So at 16 years old, I ended up getting a ladder and some squeegees, and I was getting up on ladders myself too. It's pretty funny. I look back, there's this one picture. Um, at certain houses that have like a basement, they're uneven on the side, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little hill. So I have this one picture, man. I gotta find. I'll send it to you one day. And what I did is I literally took bricks from the interlock on the side of the house, and I like stacked them up. There was a rock this big balancing my 30, it was a 32-foot ladder going up to the third floor. And I'm like, dude, if the insurance that guy had at the time saw that shit, they, they would have told him to kick rocks, no pun intended, very quickly. So that was when I kind of first started doing this whole like business thing. And dude, honestly, I loved it, man. Like everyone's so lazy nowadays. Like they're like everyone like doesn't want to do these service businesses, but I loved it, man. I was making decent money doing it, 7, 10 grand a month at 15, 16. Did it for 2 years, got into the whole online space. I saw a trend of hoverboards. You know those hoverboards with a,
The
I don't
lights.
know, thing. Ireland. What's
Yeah.
that?
They're like
Yeah.
they got two wheels, they got loads of little LED lights on them.
So I started seeing those kind of get big. I took all the money I made in window cleaning. I bought a bunch of hoverboards from China. Um, and I started selling them at festivals, at like rib festivals. We have the rib fest here. I started selling them online. And dude, I was doing this whole like e-com thing. It wasn't drop shipping because I had the products, but I was doing it before I got big, right? And again, I did pretty well with it until I had an issue one Christmas where my hoverboards didn't come in time, and I sold more hoverboards than I had, and then everyone left a bunch of nasty reviews, being like, "Oh, I didn't get my hoverboard for Christmas, this that," and I felt horrible. I refunded a lot of people. The partner I had bailed on me. He just bought a house, so he was tight on cash. He bailed on me. I refunded everybody out of my pocket, and I lost a lot of money. And look, I don't want to say I hit rock bottom, but dude, it was the first time that I've ever lost money. Like I was always stacking up, stacking up, stacking up, and then I had this experience. I lost a lot of money, and it was pretty upsetting. Because I was working really hard, um, and that's when things kind of shifted for me a little bit, because I didn't have money for another order from China. I think the minimum order was like 20 grand or something. I think if I did that, I would have been like flat broke. But and I had some money tied up in a payment processor. So anyway, long story short, that was kind of when I pivoted and got into this whole online marketing, online education space.
And like, where did that start? But actually, before I'm going to ask that question in a minute, you got in to like doing like some real like local business stuff. But did your like mom and dad or people in your family, were there entrepreneurs in your family or people that you thought like, oh, I can actually
Yeah.
do this? Like, do you know the potential of what was out there?
I look, oh, to answer your question, are my parents entrepreneurs? No, not at all. My mom's an English teacher, my dad's a software engineer. However, what I did learn from them um, was not entrepreneurship, but it was discipline and it was hard work. That's what I learned from them.
Mm-hmm.
Both my parents immigrated here when I was 6 years old, and they had to work their way up, you know. So what I saw is my mom working very hard at her day job and then taking on shifts in the evening. Same thing with my dad. He was working a job as a software engineer, taking on shifts as a software engineering computer science professor at a local college. So I saw them work very hard, and that's kind of what inspired me. Nobody in my family's an entrepreneur, but I think what I took on from that is like, and maybe it's a genetic thing, but like discipline and hard work works. Okay, that's what I learned. Yeah.
Okay. And then you got onto online and like at that point, like how did you start to understand like because this whole world that we're in of like online marketing,
Yeah.
copywriting, closing sales, it's a kind of hidden world. Like
Yeah.
it's becoming, people are writing about it more, talking about it, but you still have to look for it. And even a couple of years ago, it wasn't clear. Like a lot of the information is hidden. Like, you know, it's taken me a long time to figure out a lot about how a lot of the business, how the business models even work, because people like to keep their cards pretty close to their chest. So how did you figure out, hey, I can actually just close deals for other companies and yeah, build a business that way?
Yeah. It's pretty interesting actually. So after I did window cleaning, door-to-door sales for the most part, I knew I had this like passion for sales. I loved it, man. I loved the sales. I loved training my team. I loved, you know, taking them. I had a minivan, like a 10-year-old minivan. I loved driving to the area where we were doing door-to-door sales and hyping them up. Like I loved it, man. So I knew that that was kind of the direction I wanted to go. Ecom was cool. It was pretty easy because hoverboards were a big trend and I made pretty easy money, but I didn't particularly enjoy it. Okay. But I love the sales. So I started looking for ways where I could make money doing sales without knocking on door because it was pretty low leverage, you know, like how many door-to-door salespeople am I gonna hire at that age? Like it was tough. So I started looking for something that's higher leverage. I was still in school. I didn't really have all that many hours. And I saw this one guy running ads to an ecom webinar. I reached out to him on DMs. I'm like, dude, what are you doing with everyone who doesn't buy your shit? And he's like, well, they go into an email campaign and they go into this and that. I'm like, well, if they didn't buy off the webinar for $5,000, do you really think they're going to buy off an email? Like, it's not going to happen, right? So I told him, like, well, what does each lead cost you? And I don't remember the exact number you told me, but I'm like, what if I buy your leads and I call them and close them and you keep the money, you just pay me a commission? And I ended up not even buying the leads, but that's kind of what I offered him. And he kind of just sent me, I think it was like 200 or 300 leads in the first week or two. I closed about 60K in sales. I made 20%, or he was stingy, 18% commission. I won't forget that number. I was making 18% commission on a $5,000 product, and I closed about 60K. Those 2 or 3 weeks, you know. And I did that. Look, I took this guy from having zero sales team doing 50K, about 50K to 80K a month. And in the first 9 months, we did about 3.5 million for him in phone sales. In the first year, we did 5 million in phone sales for him between me and my team. Um, And long story short, I made this guy so much money, he literally didn't know what to do with it. He started blowing it on, uh, man, just dumb shit, private jets. He would literally take a private jet from, where he's based to Paris for lunch. Like, it was just stupid. And, it started piling up. He realized he was spending more money than I was even making him, which is pretty insane because I was making him a lot of money. He started being late with paying my invoices. He started, just doing business not the right way, not really delivering on his coaching program very well. People started complaining, refunds, chargebacks, processors getting shut down. Long story short, we got into a period where he didn't pay me for about 4 months. And dude, I got a big office. I had a big team. I got expenses. I'm like, dude, I can't keep going in the red. I was paying my team, and I'm like, dude, I'm tapped out. I can't go another month. And we ended up parting ways. Um, it wasn't the smoothest because he was like, oh, I've done so much for you. I'm like, dude, I've been working for free for the last 4 months. But little did I know, that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because if it wasn't for that, I would not have started taking on new clients. I was stuck with this guy. I was making good money, um, making an override off my reps, but I didn't take on new clients because I had enough work from him. So when I lost him as a client, I told myself I'm never going to be in a position ever again where I'm relying on one client, number one. And number two, I'm never going to be in a position where clients are not fucking paying me, period. But I never really had that issue moving forward. But look, that experience at the time was like kind of traumatic in that I was making so much money for a while and then it just stopped, came to a complete stop. But his COO, who's actually my right hand man now, I'm not gonna mention his name, but you know him. He was working from him. He came to join me. I'm like, look, I can't pay you for a few months because I got no money coming in, and he was okay with that. That's why he's one of my best friends, and he's a brother for life now. He was just with it. He was with the vision, and yeah, we took on one client. We took on another client. I got a referral. And then I look back like 6 months after when we had like 5 or 6 clients, and then Ty came in shortly after. I'm like, fuck, that was the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I also kept my head up. It seemed like a very dark time. So just kind of being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, super important as an entrepreneur. So anyway, back to your question. That's how I stumbled across this space. Started off as a sales guy, hired people, and then I took on more clients. And then I realized that a lot of clients are weak in marketing. And they don't know how to run ads, they don't know how to write funnels, their copy sucks, their email sucks. So I'm like, if my model, which it still is entirely performance based, that means I need a lot of leads and I need good leads. And in order for me to be able to do that, I need a good marketing team. So I kind of shifted my focus for a few months from sales because that was smooth sailing. At that point, I'm like, now I got to bring on a marketing team. And when that's kind of when I met you, and I met a lot of other people through groups and masterminds and stuff like that, referrals. And that's when I really started focusing on building out my marketing team so that I could improve my clients' funnels, get better leads, get more leads, so that ultimately these guys out there are super busy. They got leads all day and they got good leads, so that everybody makes more money.
So and I just want to call that out there because that's an extremely powerful insight, is that whatever you're doing, you're downstream of all the stuff that comes before you. So like, if you're, like you said, with your clients, if their marketing is weak, it affects your ability to perform. And then the
100%.
more of the process that somebody like you can control in your business, the better you're going to do, because there's less dependencies on other people. And if something goes wrong, you actually have the power to fix it yourself.
Yeah, and I just have leverage that way too, which is another thing I realized. I'm like, well, can they technically go and hire their own salespeople? Yes. But can they go and hire a new funnel builder? Can they hire a new copywriter, a new email marketing agency, a new media buyer, a new everything? Nah. And then when I started doing everything for clients, I'm like, well, now I know I'm never going to lose these clients because I run their whole thing. Even if it costs me and it cuts into my profit, it's worth it.
So a lot of the power of what you do then is actually having powerful operations, is having business systems that work efficiently and are work consistently day in, day out, right?
Yeah.
And then, which means that the client really doesn't need to have that. So what is the magic that the client or somebody you're working with as who's got a business or an offer, what can they bring to the table that's magic that you think, yeah, I can set this thing on fire?
Good question. I think that, look, first of all, you got to be good at what you do. I have so many people approach me and ask me to sell for them, and I'm like, okay, let me see your course. I log into their course. There's 4 fucking videos, and look, you can have 4 great videos, but at the end of the day, dude, like I'm thankful enough and grateful to be at the point where I can be somewhat selective. So I'm very picky about who I take on because I represent them, right? And me taking on them on as a client is also a representation of me, right? So I'm very selective. So I need clients who actually know what they're doing, right? So when I bring on a client, I actually go through all their material. I make sure it's good. I make sure it's valuable. Otherwise, I don't want to sell it, right? If I don't have conviction, I won't be able to train my guys, and my guys won't do a good job selling. So number one, they got to be really an expert at what they do. And number two, uh, they have to understand marketing, right? Um, they have to understand marketing. Look, you don't have to be the best copywriter, but they have to understand certain concepts, right? Like you got to be good on ads in order for things to work, right? Otherwise, it's a little bit difficult.
So when somebody comes to you, I mean, you've got all these different products you're selling. How do you go about thinking, like, what's your thought process around how am I going to actually sell this thing? Like, how are you pulling together different things your team are going to need to say and the questions they're going to need to ask when they get on a sales call? How do you figure that out?
Yeah, I think I train my team not so much to follow a script, but really follow a framework. I think pretty much all you're doing in sales is closing a gap between where somebody is and where they want to be, and understanding the challenges as to why they haven't been able to cross that bridge and the consequences of what happens if they don't. So that's kind of how I train my team. I don't train them to read a script word for word. I train them to really understand how to close that gap, sometimes widen that gap, and other times just close it and bridge it. So it really depends, but overall, I mean, I think that whether you're selling a course on real estate or a course on e-commerce, it's all pretty much the same thing, right? Um, the people want a certain result. They're looking for a certain outcome. That's why they're on the phone with you, right? So, the way I teach my guys is how to sell in general, and then the product itself is kind of plug and play.
And I bought your course, and I want to talk about this. This is the next thing. Is like you've gone beyond the point of selling now, where you do that. That's your bread and butter business, but you also actually go out and train and teach people now. So I've gone through your course and I've gone through your videos, and then I've actually been on some live training calls with you. And what really stands out, particularly in the live videos I've seen, is like how passionate you are about what you do. Like you get super excited in the
Yeah,
training calls. Like, I mean, because you did the
yeah.
videos and the videos are professional and you're trying to give all the information in a very like structured, logical way. But when I've seen you on a live call, like you're super animated. You get very excited in those calls. So just talk about that, how you like teaching and how you feel about that.
Dude, I love teaching, man. I love inspiring people. Look, at the end of the day, man, I really think that if you are a good communicator, you can make money in sales. And if you're not a good communicator, you can become one. So, um, look, I'll tell you this, man. I've seen sales personally make a lot of money for me. I've seen sales make a ton of money for one of my guys who actually went to high school with me and then joined me. He was working at McDonald's, literally. Like people say this, like I was working at McDonald's. No, he was actually working at McDonald's before he came to work with me. He made 10 grand, I think his third or fourth month. Like, dude, I've actually seen this work for so many people. So And I think that's where my passion just comes from. Like it works, you know, like there's all these other business models online, and I'm not gonna shit on them. I think that everything works. Um, but some things are harder than others. But dude, I've just actually seen so many people who have crushed it with me that it's like it's hard not to get excited. It's hard not to get excited for the single mom who joined my program after trying drop shipping and Amazon and real estate and all this stuff, because I firmly believe that if she follows my steps, it's gonna work for her. Because I've seen it work for so many others. So it's hard not to get excited when I've seen it work for so many people. You know, like I love helping people, man. I love training, I love inspiring. Um, it's just hard not to get excited, dude, when I've helped so many people see results. You know, like when I'm training somebody on a group call and I see them showing up consistently, like I see this face on my in the little Zoom box, I'm like, fuck, this person's they're gonna make it. I'm gonna change their life, you know, and that's just like super, super exciting for me.
Okay. So good, man. Tell me about people. When you are looking at students and you've talked to other people, you've trained a lot of people. Are there specific personality traits or behaviors or habits that lead to sales and success? And are there specific things that make it harder for people to be good at selling?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. And this is like a whole psychology discussion we can have for a long time, but we'll keep it kind of short and concise here. I think that one of the biggest misconceptions that you have to be extroverted to succeed in sales, which is absolutely not true. I've seen a lot of introverted people do better in sales than extroverted people. In fact, people think I'm an extrovert. I'm not. I'm actually introverted. I'm a trained extrovert. Huge difference. Not naturally, I'm not extroverted. So I think, look, in terms of character traits that are important to be successful, in sales as well as anything else is coachability, right? A lot of people watch like Wolf of Wall Street or watch some movies and read a couple books that are outdated and they have all these misconceptions about sales. So being coachable and learning how to actually sell today is super important. So coachability. Number two is listening. Like you got to be a good listener. And again, you can learn these things, but you cannot be successful in sales if you don't know how to listen to people. And then number three thing, which I think is also super important, which again can be trained, is listening beyond words. Listening to how people say certain things, not only what they say, but how they say certain things, is also super important, which you can learn how to do, but it has to be done. Those are three things that are super important to become successful in sales. Three kind of traits that would hinder someone from being successful in sales is people who are not emotional, right? Some people just don't really care about people's emotions. And you know, as we both know, sales is entirely emotional. The sale is made on emotion. So there's some people who just can't get empathetic, which is not a lot of people, but there are some people like that. So if you have like no emotions, then sales might be a little bit tough for you. That's number one. Number two, and I'm trying to not just say the opposite of what I said 30 seconds ago. Number
Two
two,
things
but
can be
look,
true at the same time, so that's okay. Once is new, it's the nuance.
yeah, if you're not coachable, obviously you'll never succeed. But what else? Coachability. Yeah, man, just a lack of empathy. I think that's the biggest thing. If you don't know how to listen and you don't know and you just don't care, you know, about helping people, about being there to kind of close that gap, help people take certain steps, you won't be able to close any deals, right? Um, I think really a lot of things in sales could be learned. So it's hard to say if you're this person, you'll never be successful because I think you can always pretty much always change and learn. But yeah, I mean, I think the three most important things to succeed are those three things.
Yeah, those are amazing. Like listening was something I had to train myself to do. I used to be a real bad interrupter, and I realized, and particularly like through, I did some sales before. I was doing sales before I was got into marketing, but like in copywriting, you come into it, you're a lot of the people are very braggadocious, big ego, and you think you have to
Mhm.
just wow people with like your verbal facility. But after a couple of years, you realize the real juice is actually in listening. And so like now when I talk to clients, I'm like, give me your sales calls. Like, when was the last time you talked to a customer? Can I have your customer service emails? I want to find the exact words that people who spent money with them are using, and I want to just take those words and reuse them, because that's where the easiest wins come from.
Huh. It's funny you mentioned that. I remember when you wrote one of my VSLs for one of my offers, you sent a message in this WhatsApp group we had. You're like, you asked for a bunch of stuff. I don't remember exactly what it was, but you're like, can you send me this? Can you send me that? Can you send me this? I'm like, dude, I'm just asking you to write a script. Like, why does John need all this stuff? I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And then I'm like, fine, whatever. I sent it over, and then I remember reading it. I'm like, man, this actually sounds like me, like this actually sounds like what I would say. It's written better than I could write it, but I'm like, this is me. So I think that both in sales and copywriting and marketing as a whole, being able to step into your clients' shoes, into your prospect's shoes, like that's game changer.
Yeah. And the
100%.
two things of listening and coachability like go together. And I see this with my son. Like I got him into sports really, really early. And it's like he was a really shy boy up to the age 3, 4. Once he got into sports, like he
Mm,
developed so much confidence. But I kept on going on to him about just like listen to your coach, listen to your coach, listen to your coach. And
yeah,
he took it to heart, and he's become incredibly coachable. And the speed at which his skills have developed just from being the
yeah,
kid who sits down and listens to the coach when the coach speaks, while some of the other boys are goofing around, he just
yeah,
learns so much so fast. And I mean, I didn't learn that skill young, and I can just see him learning that skill. And he doesn't need to be taught it now; it's just part of his character because
right.
he's like 8 years old. And I just see like what an advantage that's going to give him going forward.
Yeah, yeah, and everything, dude. Like not only in sports, but it changes everything, man. I think like being good at sales for me personally allowed me to have a great relationship with my friends, with my girlfriend, with my staff, because I know how to listen. I know how to help, right? Helping comes from listening, right? So I think, yeah, man. I mean, look, I learned it pretty young, but I think that the fact that you're like trying to teach your son that at such a young age, man, that's awesome. That's huge. That's huge. That's probably one of the most important skills in the world.
Mhm. The third one you said was listening not just to what people say, but how they say it. So that's kind of the subject of tonality, right?
Yeah, 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 exactly.
You want to like just talk a little more on that, and kind of how did you come to understand the importance of tonality, and what do you tell your people you're training how to use that as a powerful tool?
Yeah, yeah. So this one's less like broad, in terms of like it's not really so much a personality type, but it's more sales specific. But it's funny, like I used to hire people, and on day one, they'll be like, dude, he said yes. He's gonna pay me tomorrow. He's gonna pay me in a week. I'm like, okay, man. And they're always like, you'll see, you'll see, you'll see. All the time. And I would hire people. They're like, dude, I got a deal. I'm like, where's the cash? He's like, he's paying me tomorrow. He's paying me in a week and 2 weeks. I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, what's the problem here? And I listen to call recordings all the time. And it was always like, yeah, man, this all sounds great. This all sounds great. I'm getting paid in 2 weeks. I'll pay you then. And they're always like, yeah, awesome, let's do it. And I'm like, well, first of all, logically speaking, if he gets paid every 2 weeks, wouldn't that mean that he just got paid? Number one. Number two, I'm like, listen to his tone. Like, how did he get so excited after you drop the price all of a sudden? It's called over embellishing you, right? He's over embellishing you. He's making you think that he's actually going to do it, and you believe it. And he's like, yeah, but he said, I'm like, stop. Rule number one of objection handling is don't listen to what they say, listen to how they say it. And then when I started teaching that to my guys, I no longer heard this stuff on day one. Oh, he's gonna pay me. They're always like, yeah, he's full of shit. So I think this is man, it's pretty crazy. Like a lot of salespeople never learn this, but I think that's one of the most important things to sales, which again comes down to listening. It's just a different form of listening. You're listening to something else, right? Super important, man. Like oftentimes what people say is not actually what they mean. And being able to understand that helps you steer your sales calls in certain directions that are pretty pivotal in the sales conversation. It allows you to close more deals. It allows you to better connect with your prospects, right? Even like in discovery, right? In situational based questions, when you're asking people about what they do, oftentimes people will say, I run a business, man. Everything's good, but I'm looking for something else. And then normal sales guy would be like, okay, what are you looking for? Right? They would just move on to their goals. For me, it's like, well, I could hear there's a little bit of fear in his voice, right? Like maybe his business is going sideways. Like, I'd ask a question, not moving the call into the vision-based questions, but I would ask, well, okay, and if your business is doing so well, like why are you looking for something else? Right. And this takes the conversation a whole different direction. Now you gotta be careful not to be confrontational, but like really listening to how people say certain things. And not just what they say will literally like triple your sales.
So if you're in a call or a business, not just a sales call, but any kind of business negotiation where you think that what the person is saying doesn't line up, like if they give you a yes, but you don't feel like that it's very certain, or they give you a no, but there's some hesitation, you think maybe they kind of do actually want to say yes. How do you, without like being confrontational or calling them a liar, how do you get the truth out of people?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so first thing first, it depends on where it is in the conversation, right? If it's after you've dropped the price, you're an objection handling, right? If it's after you've dropped the price and they're telling you, I don't think I can do this, and this, then I would go back into, well, why are we here in the first place, right? Like tap into their emotions that they opened up to you about earlier as to why we're here in the first place, right? And again, it depends on what the objection is specifically, right? I have a whole framework for, handling objections, but it depends where in the call it is, right? Not every case is going to be the same, but just like we're listening to their tonality, the way you can come off not confrontational is by changing your tonality, right? So instead of being like, what do you mean? You told me earlier that you want to do it, and now you don't, like that's confrontational. That's
Yes.
right. So just by us listening to their tone, we got to be selective with our tone as well. So be a little bit more of a curious and empathetic tone. Well, like, okay, gotcha, I totally understand. And when you said you want to get started in X, Y, and Z, what did you actually mean by that? Right. So it's a lot less intrusive. It's a lot less. It's a lot less of an interrogation, and it's more like coming from a place of wanting to help, right? So again, it's that's why I said tonality is huge, 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 huge.
Amazing. With you, when people like come in and they're doing your coaching programs and training, can you tell, pretty quickly who's going to make it and who's not?
Yeah.
How quick?
Man, I'll tell you this. The quickest has been like one day. I saw this one kid show up on his first coaching call. And generally people take a few weeks to role play because they got to go through the course. Dude, this guy bought my course, went through like 50 videos within the first day, which I don't even know how that's possible. Went through 50 videos. The first day he was role playing. And you know what? I'll put it to you this way. Can everyone succeed in sales? Pretty much yes. Okay. Can everyone be trained? Pretty much yes, if they're coachable. But some people just get it. Some people just get it, man. Like some people get it that when somebody says, hey, I don't have the money, they get it, that that's an objection, and that, hey, maybe they have the money, but they don't trust you, or maybe they have the money, but they don't see the value, or maybe they have the money, but there's a lack of certainty in the outcome, you know? So like, dude, this kid, bought my program, didn't pay in full, he was broke. You know, he was in high school actually. Went through like 50 videos or something on the first day, role played his first coaching call, and he got an objection. I don't remember what it was, but it was some bullshit objection, as most of them are. And dude, like he gets it, you know, he's just he naturally understands the sales conversation, you know. So I heard that guy and I told my team we're gonna hire him, and now he's working for us. He works remote, and unfortunately his parents are forcing him to go to university, but anyway, that's a different story. But I hired that kid within 3 weeks of him joining my coaching. Gave him a full refund. I told him, dude, fuck the coaching. I need you on my team, and I hired him. But look, obviously that's an exception, but generally I can tell within like 3 or 4 coaching calls, people who show up consistently, even, you know, small things, man, like keeping their camera on, like people who don't have their camera on a Zoom call, learning to get into sales, like guys, I'm sorry, like the truth is, like, man, you can't do your Zoom calls when you're on a client with your camera off, you know? So that's one thing I look at. Other times it's like, um, how good are people like in terms of thinking on their feet, you know? Like if they just get a quick jab, you know, some objection, or like, you know, if prospect picks up and says right away, hey, how much is this gonna cost? If they tell them the price right away, I'm like, you guys got some learning to do, you know? So like being able to like think on your feet, being able to steer the conversation. I'll tell you this. I think one of the biggest like indicators of people who are gonna do well is being a naturally smooth communicator, right? Because there's 2 parts to sales. There's actual theory, right? Knowing what to say in certain things, and then the other thing is saying it, right? So if you got that part down already, and you're just like a good communicator, you can chop it up with anybody, you'll probably be good.
Yeah, amazing. Love it. And yeah, I totally agree that the more people you talk to, the more you practice. It's just another practice game, right? I mean, even just more broadly communication, the more time you spend talking to other people, the better a
Yeah.
communicator you become.
Ah,
And it
100%.
all feeds into this, is like just putting yourself out there and having more conversations with more different and interesting people. You learn more about
Yeah,
life.
exactly. Like there's some people who join my program, like some young guys that are like 16, 17, and they're just like kind of awkward. I'm like, just go to Starbucks and try and have a quick conversation with everybody who walks through the door, you know? Just like a quick one, you know, it doesn't have to be in depth. Just, hey, how are you? You know, what's your Starbucks order? What are you getting? Nice wine. You know, like just chop it up. Right. So I think that's like one of the biggest things. And dude, a lot of my young students, they need that. They need that.
Okay, so I'm gonna post the links to your program below this video when I publish it, because I want people to take a look at it. I've been through the program myself. It's an awesome
Sure.
program. You're thinking about sales. It's not just the typical, here's your script, go read it. Like you said, you teach people about how to think about making a sale, and not just like a process, but mental frameworks for actually becoming able to listen well and be able to communicate well and move the conversation to where it needs to go.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, man, anybody, just to kind of reward your audience here, you don't even gotta post a link. If you drop the link to either my Facebook group or one of my socials, and anybody sends me a message saying they watched this video, I mean, we're going on like 50 minutes, man. You gotta have some loyal fans. Anybody who shoots me a message saying they watched this video, I'll just send them free access just as a little reward.
Oh, amazing. That's super nice, Dylan. Thank you so much. Yeah, there are some
100%.
people. There are some people who seem to watch a lot of the videos. It's a small number, but they're out there.
Good. Well, hopefully you blow up and my inbox blows up as well. I'll be happy.
Okay. Thanks so much for taking the time to have this conversation, Dylan. I really appreciate you being here. And yeah, as I say, I have so much respect for what you do, and for
Appreciate it, bro.
it's not just hard working, because lots of people work hard, but just how willing you are to just to say like, I'm going to shoulder all this responsibility. And you know what? If there's more responsibility to have, I'll take it on too, which is a really amazing character trait that I respect a lot.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on here, dude. I hope everyone who's watching this after, because they'll see the replay. I hope everyone gets some value out of this. And yeah, man, thanks for having me on. Keep doing these episodes, man. I think a lot of people have a lot of stories to share, a lot of insight. And once again, happy birthday. I mean, it's probably getting late where you are, but hope you had an awesome day and we'll catch up soon, brother.
Thanks, Dylan.
Peace. Bye.